Ugh. This bottom blade guide needs some maintenance. Yep, sure enough, that bearing's toast. Right, so last time I left off, I couldn't try out my new bandsaw blade because it turned out that this band backstop guide bearing was screwed up. As I pointed out in my last video, this is a pretty strange bearing with a 30 outer diameter, a 10 inner diameter, but half an inch wide. I'll drop this upper band guide off as well, clean everything up. The way these existing bearings, outer races stick up out of the housing does look to me like they were not the right ones anyway. They have this hardened button in them, which the blade runs on, and this one's obviously been run long enough until the button wore out, and the blade was running on the outer race, and then got rotated. A couple of people pointed out that Simply bearings in the UK have got this KSM 87500, which is 30-10. It has a 9 outer race with an extended inner race, and that looks like it's the bearing I need. The next step's going to be break it all down and give it a good washing. This almost looks like an automotive frost plug pushed into the back of there. This bearing's not loose, but if that is a frost plug, maybe I can easily knock it out. Oh yeah, that's already moving. That was well greased. So now I'll be able to press out that bearing from behind. Oh, I don't have a flat surface to push it against, do I? Because what I could do is put a screw in here up to this level, and that gives me 3 points. Okay, so this is one of the screws from the blade guides, probably 1/4 So if I put it in here and screw it into that level, we're good to go. Probably been tightened over a lifetime with metric Allen keys. So now, of course, it's all noodled inside, and the imperial Allen key no longer works. The only saving grace is 1/4 is used by all the camera stuff. My camera cages and stuff use it, but looking at it, that's not 1/4. Wonder if it is metric. Okay, it is metric. M6. Man, this machine is weird as. M6 does also seem to want to bind up pretty hard, so rather than forcing it, there's a lot of gunk down there. Let me just put a bit of oil in it. Yeah, it certainly feels like it's not cutting, just cleaning. So it's definitely M6. Okay, so it really wasn't that tight. Well, so after a good cleanup, let's take a look at this and see what we're actually dealing with here. Just to make it clear why I removed these blade guides, you can see there's this kind of rotating backstop that the blade moves against, and then the blade guide. This is a blade guide for 1/2 inch, and this blade was 13 millimeters before the teeth got wiped out. So ideally, it should run with the flat portion of the blade against the blade guide, and this button guiding the back of the blade such that the teeth don't fall into the gap. As you can see, this is too far back. That's why the teeth were partially running in the blade guide. Wipes out the teeth and wears out the blade guides. So the big question is, why is this so far back? Now, a little bit of it is just wear, but that's not that much. It's only worn less than 1/2 millimeter. Top guide, this pair of guides is original DoAll, at least it's engraved on them. They're 1/2 inch wide, they seem to fit quite nicely. No excessive play or wear, that's good. Bearing shot. So far I haven't been able to find a vendor in Europe for those except in UK. They're £25 a pop, plus exchange rate, plus postage, plus customs, plus time waiting for customs. I'm guessing they're going to cost me €100 by the time I get them in Austria. So that would be door number 1. But behind door number 2 is, behind that bearing seat, there's plenty of meat. So what I could do, there's a standard metric size called 62200, which is 30 by 10 by 14 millimeters. So if I take that shoulder back by 1.3 millimeters, I could just use standard bearings. And that's sounding pretty attractive to me right now. What else do we see here? These faces are a bit chewed up. I guess I'll put them on the Clarkson and give them a bit of a dress up. These band backing bits are reasonably worn, but not terrible. This is a pretty simple turn part. I could make up replacements of those. The hardware is again a weird mix. These are definitely Imperial. This screw just locks the freeze plug in place, whereas these are all metric screws. I might replace all 4 of them, like with these 4. Moving on to the lower set. Now this is a bit more troublesome. The backing plate mounts with these 2. There's a big countersunk threaded hole here which is not at all used. This row of holes is not used. This plate drops in, it's mounted with a single screw. The upper guide block has 1 guide pin and then a single Imperial screw. Bearing is once again completely dead, but what caught my eye is that this pair of blade guides is not 1/2 inch wide, it's only 12 millimeters. So it's very sloppy in this side, and even worse here. These are now basically useless for this machine. This is completely worn out by the looks of it, though I'm not sure why you'd get so much wear in this area. It looks like this has all been repaired before. Like you can see what looks to be weld build-up or braze build-up or something in the back there. Those threads are threaded inserts, which is probably why they're now metric. They were probably original 1/4-20s direct into the casting, and now they've been sleeved with Ep.6. This side seems to work okay with a 1/2 inch blade guide. I think I'm going to need to do a repair on this side, because even the 1/2 inch one is still very loose and wobbly in there. Now, this is the bandsaw blade which I damaged trying out my gearbox, but if I chop out these damaged bits, maybe the DoAll's got enough blade length adjustment that I can still use it after welding it together. So there we go, plenty more to do. Mail time. Oh wow, replacement buttons for the saw to run against. Perfect, thanks a lot Stefan, that's perfect timing. He also sent me a set of much thinner blade guides. These are I think the 1/4 inch ones. But wait, there's more. Oh very nice, that's carbide, thanks a lot. Sandwich. They make good stuff. I use quite a few Sandvik small cutting tools. This is huge, huh? Would this be a 20 millimeter end mill? Thanks very much, Stefan. That's brilliant. Have to be careful of this one. Looks like two the same. Wow. Now in the comments section, guys, you know what to say to Stefan. Thanks very much. You know, when I was doing this inspection yesterday, I found it weird that with these 1/2 inch bearings and those caps in place, they seem to sit a long way below this level, which determines the location of the blade guides. You know, that's about a 2.5mm stack of feeler gauges. I asked Stefan to measure the same dimension on his machine, and the photo he sent me shows it's more like 1mm, which would make sense. So I'm wondering whether some machining was done on this pocket in the past, taking it back deeper to the ideal depth for the 14mm wide standard 622 00 bearings, and then at some stage when those bearings wore out, might have been 10-15 years later, somebody else went to the catalogue, bought the original DoAll bearing, not knowing that the pocket was deeper, which caused it to run 1.3mm behind the plane it's supposed to have. I've asked Stefan to measure this bore depth on his one, because on mine it's 9.9mm. And sure enough, Stefan's bearing pockets are much more shallow. Right, let's start the machining. Now to fix this, I'm going to have to mill off the shoulder, mill the whole thing down a bit, and make a replacement part that gets screwed and glued in there. So I'm going to need some replacement cast iron. And that's what brake rotor's for. This would be another good job for one of those like metal cutting bandsaws, or even a hacksaw. Mail time. Looks like my bearings have arrived. I normally use Agrolager in Germany, and I choose them because I think it sounds funny. It sounds like aggressive position, the Agrolager. In the end, I didn't get 62200s because they didn't have any with the metal caps. And I figured that the metallic dust caps are probably a lot more robust than rubber seals in this application. In the choice of bearings with 30 outer, 10 inner and 14mm thickness, this twin row 3200 seemed to be the best option. Plus it'll have a little more axial capacity than just a normal ball bearing. So I will still need to relieve the bearing pocket a little bit. That's now zero clearance, it's touching. I'll just oil the table before I put my vise on it. Hey guys, did you see last week's video from Andy's Machines? He got really lucky, picked up like 3 training CNC machines at an auction. It's going to be interesting to see what he does with them because all of them have got dead controllers, so he's going to do some conversion to Mach 4 I think on the first one. Maybe we bring him over to the dark side and he learns a bit of Linux CNC as well, huh? Who knows? I really need to make up a shaft for the nice 3-insert tool which Emil sent me. It's on the list. Since it's a turning job, I really want to do it on the Chameleon. As far as I can tell, brake disc cast iron never has defects in it. Right, to attach them together I need a hole here about 1/4 inch out, and I go 7mm up from the end. And the same in here. This is just a bit of scrap that's got a big hole in it, so I can drill straight through. Since the new GH5S camera, which I got, can do slow motion, I better start using it, huh? But there's no audio when you go to the really slow speeds, so I'll have to work out how to fake something there. That surface is also pretty damaged, so I'm going to call that about as good as I can get it. You can really see that steel insert which they put on some previous repair. A little bit of degreasing. Now let's glue this together. Mail time. Box says fragile and has a hole punched in it. That's never a good sign. I ordered some new light bulbs, and these are the ones with reasonably high color rating, CRI 90. I was hoping to find some even with an even higher color rating, like up 95, 97. I couldn't find any. The color temperature should be 4000 Kelvin. Now in my main workshop, I already converted everything to 4000 Kelvin lights. But here in the shed, I've got a pretty bad mix of fluorescent strips and incandescent bulbs. So the idea here is to switch everything over to color temperature of 4000, hopefully with a reasonably high color rating, so that I'm kind of hoping to get more consistent color on my videos. Then I've got the same problem here. Probably dust the lamp as well. Let's hope that works better. So next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to give these existing blade guides a bit of a freshen up on the Clarkson. Okay, I think that should be fine. Haven't quite cleaned it up perfectly, but no point wasting extra material. If I flip it around, I'll clean up the other side as well. It's got some quite nasty scores in it. Still a very slight rounding on the corner, but I'll leave that as well. This one's also quite rounded, quite a lip there and some scoring. So how does that angle look? I only set the 45 degrees using the scale on the little 3-angle vise, so it's probably not that accurate. Yep. I can see that's more like 44 degrees that I set. Well, they cleaned up nicely. Right, the epoxy's dried overnight. It feels pretty nice and hard, but just to make sure, because it's only been about 13 degrees here in the basement, I'll just whack it with the heat gun for a few minutes, just to bring it up to maybe 40 or 50 degrees Celsius, to make sure the epoxy cures to maximum strength. Okay, first off, I'm just going to do kind of a scratch pass through the glue and just the very top part of the cast iron, just to make sure I've got the right width of the slot. Okay, nothing broke. Not quite deep enough to see what I'm doing. I'll do another light pass. I'll do it at that size. I can still come back at the end and open it up. My Z0 is this height here, so that'll just bring this down to the same height. Okay, that is still a wee bit too tight. Just run another pass along here and just take 1/10 of a millimeter off it. Well, that feels nice. That's not a perfectly flat surface, but it looks like they're going to line up well enough. Now I just need to knock this surface down level with that one. Whoops, that wasn't quite far over enough. Now in my setup, if I'd gone and found the center of this hole before I glued this part on, it'll be pretty easy now just to run a toolpath just to chomp off the edge of that. I need to mount this on the lathe in the forejaw to bore the bearing journal a bit deeper. I may as well do this at the same time on the lathe. So to make it easier to center on the lathe, I think I'll whip the worst of it off with the angle grinder. Can't get into that next little bit without hitting here or here. Need a smaller disc. That's going to be a problem, I think. So if I want to go across here and across here, I've got the grease nipple, which is loose but doesn't want to come out. And if I go across here and across here, I've got that in the way. Plan B, maybe I can make it work if I put its backing plate back on it and then grip that. Now in this case, it's probably best to do some sort of a gripping like that. Right, since plan A didn't work, plan B is also a failure because I can't grip with just that piece bolted on the back. I guess it's time for plan C. Take a scungy old bit of flame hardened steel. And mount this about here. Drill the hole for that bit first, 1/4 inch. Let's mount this monstrosity. That speed's a bit high, it's vibrating a fair bit, so let me just switch gears. That's better. Alright, we're getting closer. Okay, so that's fed the repair in even nicer than I expected. Pretty happy with that. So how far does this need to go in? Here's my bearing with the button in it. It's not much, this is just touching. So if I go in maybe a 1/2 millimeter, max a millimeter, it should be plenty. Now opening up that clearance wasn't critical, so I'd better make sure this is actually concentric, which it's not at all. Since that bearing's already a very loose fit, I'm only going to bore down at the bottom at the seat. I'm not going to try and touch up or do anything with the wall of that bore. I'll just zero my top slide dial without any backlash. Oh, too far. So next I'll run the thing right up to that shoulder. Let's call it there. Lock the saddle. Move in slightly off the work. Right, let's turn this. So that was a 1/2 millimeter. Okay, that's got definite clearance now. It's about 1/2 millimeter. I'd say that's about all you need. As time goes by, this is going to wear down, increasing the clearance, so I'll call that a day. But since that's so nicely fixtured, I might as well use that to hold it while I just file off some of the sharp edges, make it look more like a casting. Hey, did you guys watch Alex Steele's first episode of making a model steam hammer? And he broke one of the castings and he made a beautiful job of fixing it, pinned it. Right, I think I'll leave it at that. Oh no, there's a bit of a sharp edge still here. I'm a bit disappointed I didn't take out all of the hex there. Unfortunately, the hex is pretty down deep in an M6 bolt, so if I'd taken all the hex out, there wouldn't have been much left of the bolt shoulder to give any strength. Anyway, with that now done, the last bit is glue removal. And I just need to drill and tap this hole again. Now with the lower guide finished, I just need to turn my attention to the upper guide, and the only thing it needs is just having that bore cut deeper as well. Maybe I can get this one to mount directly. Hope so. Okay, I kind of chased my tail on this for a bit because it's obvious that the bearing bore's not round. It's kind of got 2 lobes to it. And it's the same deal as before. All right, done. Time for reassembly. Right, 2 ranks, fall in. I need to buy some more grease. Gun's about empty. That blade's riding a bit too far forward, so I'll drop the blade tension a bit. And then with this, I can adjust the tilt of the top wheel, so I wanted the blade to ride a bit further back. I think I need to push it in a bit further. I'll have to read up on the adjustments because that's just moved the blade to sit on the back of the crowning of this wheel. Well, it's moved it back a little. Guess we'll see how that works. Last time I tried to do a cut in mild steel, I chose Acier Utils, and every French speaker in the world pointed out that that is not mild steel, that's tool steel. Mild steel is Acier Carbone 2. So for mild steel, 6mm thick, it wants 60 meters per minute, and I need a blade with, did I see this right? I thought it was 10 to 14 TPI, but maybe it got a bit of a slope in here, huh? I mean, this is a 10 to 14 TPI variable pitch blade, so let's give that a go. Damn, that feels nice when cutting. All right. Right, let's give it a go with something a little more challenging. I'm going to need to make some new blade guides. So Stefan Gotteswind on one of the forums gave me the recommendation to use 1.2842, which I think Americans call O2 tool steel, oil hardening. And I need about a 60mm piece of this, cut in half. Right, so I'll just set up my fence to rip this in half. 15mm, that looks about right. It's 30 square steel. Right, this being tool steel, I need to slow it back down to 40. Ugh. Jump out of gear? No, maybe I was just pushing too hard. No, must have jumped out of gear. Okay, that's frustrating. It's not staying in gear anymore. I think that gearbox is going to have to come back out, and I need to have another inspection of those drive dogs. Came up out of the basement, and man, it looks like it snowed like crazy all day. That's an unusual amount of snow in one go for Vienna. I finished the new shifter cam last week. Still needs a wee bit of adjustment. It still sometimes jumps out of gear, but that may be the dogs inside the gearbox. I've fixed the blade guides. All right. Not sure if I actually need new tyres yet. I'm just keeping an eye on them. And I did buy a new 6 TPI. So it's fantastic to get 3 things off the list in one go. For Patreons and members, I'm going to do my next live stream next Sunday after my video. So come and join me then. If you're not a member or a Patreon yet, but you enjoy the channel, please sign up. I do a Patreon live stream roughly once a month. Thanks for watching.